Hello, my name is Madison Whiteside, and this is my project for the Sacred Space Tri-Faith Summit. For context, our site is in Waller County, Texas, right in front of a slave burial site. A lot of the graves aren't marked, so this project was to be treated with a lot of care. For my SWOT analysis, I looked at the solar paths, the natural features and views, the circulation, and the noise sources. What I found was that there was a lot of opportunity for good views because of the amounts of natural light, the nature, and also the creek that is close to the site. One of the weaknesses, but also one of the strengths of the site, is that there wouldn't be a lot of circulation because the road that is used to get to the site is kind of this back road. But also there won't be a lot of noise from cars because of the lack of people traveling the road. Most of the noise is actually found from the creek and from the animals in nature. This was an opportunity for me because I wanted it to be very invested in nature. Even though it would be inside, I still wanted to have a connection with nature. For the threats, there were reports of gunshots being heard because this is near forest, so people were most likely hunting. And another threat would definitely be the wildlife because it is this field clearing, so I can see wildlife possibly getting in. At the site visit, I was mainly looking at a lot of the clearings and a lot of the natural views that were coming into the site without there being construction on it, and so I really appreciated this shot. All of this led to my first and second iterations. Keep in mind, I wanted to have the views be a big part of this. So for my first iteration, I have this hallway where the wall facing the lake, it was covered with history of Prairie View and the site, and then the other side being open so that way you can still get that view of the trees and of the sun, all the natural light, and then you come out into the monument. For my second iteration, I wanted there to be a path where you go through the monument and then into the sacred space, with the transition being made clear by the water. After this, we really started leaning into precedents, and so my precedent studies were Temple Aldea in San Lorenzo and Dr. Vishnu Varn's Memorial Complex. The things that really stood out to me was the geometry of Temple Aldea. The architect Edson Muniz could fit a lot of meaning and a lot of tranquility with very minimal shapes. The main shape being this right triangle that you see. It really made me start thinking about the different types of shapes I'm using in architecture, because never once had it occurred to me that you could do that. In Dr. Vishnu Varn's Memorial Complex, I really liked this centralized hierarchy that he created, and so I wanted to study what makes a hierarchy. And I also really liked the circular building, so that way you had to go into that building and participate in that circulation in order to get to the centralized hierarchy. To carry on with the circulation thought, the first circulation I looked at was Temple Aldea's. I thought that the circulation was really weird. I'm like, why are these two pieces broken up? But then I really looked at the concept of Temple Aldea, and I realized that this is actually perfect for this fight, because they wanted to test what makes a space sacred, and they did that by creating a very simple space. But then these two parts, the temple, the pathway to the temple, and then the exit to the temple, are completely separated. Like, there is this little gap in between this concrete slab that completely breaks up the form of this project, but you have to take this bigger step in order to get out of it, which kind of to me signifies this movement from sacredness to back to secularness, which I thought was very interesting, the way that they did that. For my sketches, I really wanted to hammer on the geometry, the structure, and the space, because once again there is a change in space with Temple Aldea, and so I wanted to show that with this platform on my partie and this bottom part of my partie. I also wanted to create a model that stood by itself with very simple geometry, so every shape that you see in this partie is triangles. Moving on to Dr. Vishnu Varnes Memorial Complex, I once again really liked the circulation of it, and I like that you had to interact with the circular building in order to get to the centralized hierarchy, so you appreciate it more. But I also wanted to look at what makes a hierarchy. And I found it in this piece. The center pond, the central pool, really has this visual interest in it. Whenever you walk in, you can see the statue in the end, you can see the monument in the pool, and it really just makes you intrigued and you want to know more about it. For my process sketches, I really wanted to once again discover what makes a hierarchy, and I wanted to also hammer on that circulation that I was so interested in. And so I created this partie that is circulation and hierarchy, and my concept word was interlude, because I wanted there to be this participation in the circulation, and then finally you get to the moment of rest, or the interlude. All of these precedents and parties really informed my sketches for my third and final iterations, because I wanted to create the simple geometry with the circulation and the centralized hierarchy, and I was able to do that. So with my third and final iterations, I created a large dominating triangular space, and then these pillars in the center pool, which were inspired by Dr. Vishnu Varnes Memorial Complex, because once again there were the monuments inside of the pool, and so I really wanted to bring that out in my design. And then the dominating triangle from Temple Aldea with the changes in space and the changes in triangle. For my floor plan, I have my public sacred space, I have 2 private sacred spaces, I have a lounge at the front, and a museum with 2 sides of outdoor exhibits, and my bathrooms. For my monument, I have the memorial pillars with a second connecting part being the outdoor space where you can walk down into where the monument is and you can see it from a lowered standpoint. For my elevations, I wanted to show off the triangular motifs that I have throughout the building, which is mainly shown through windows. I have this window area that is all triangles that serves as a viewpoint to the monument space and to the sacred space. I wanted to create this interaction from the present and the future using these 2 parts. For my east elevation, I wanted to highlight the geometry because I have a lot of rectilinear geometry with a highlight in the triangles once again. For my sections, I wanted to show off how the space was divided, with the lobby being in front, the hallway being in the middle, and then the sacred spaces being on the end. My third section was showing off my back window with the triangular shapes taking place once again in the sacred space. The materials I used were inspired by Dr. Vishnu Varnes Memorial Complex, but then also shifted a little bit with the white from Temple Aldea. I use whites who really hammer on the purity aspect of it, the sacredness of it, because white reflects light very well, and there's a lot of natural light in my building. And I used brushed bronze to once again elevate it a little more to make it feel more regal. But then I humbled my sacred space a little bit with the natural elements. So a lot of wood was used in the sound absorbing panels, because once again I said that there were gunshots being heard from the site, and so I wanted to create sound absorbing panels not only to acknowledge that, but to keep sound out from the sacred space and the private sacred spaces, so that way people would be free to make as much noise as they need to in their space. Here are my rendered shots. Once again, this is Tri-Faith Summit. My concept was legacy, with the concept statement being, the excellence of legacies will endure despite the pain of hardship, time, and loss. And this was really important to me because, once again, the memorial pillars are there so they can honor the 8 original students at Prairie View A&M University. Prairie View went through a lot of hardship in order to establish itself as a university, and so I really wanted to highlight that while also having moments where the viewers themselves can highlight that. As you're visiting the outdoor exterior, you can once again go down into the outdoor space so you can be greeted with everything. The lot is organized in a way where when you're standing there, you are standing in the direct middle of it all. So whenever you look, the triangular space takes up your entire viewpoint and it expands your vision subconsciously. So you are looking towards the future while being a part of the present, while also coming from the past. There is a time dynamic here that I really wanted to emphasize. With the outdoor exhibit, I wanted there to be a way where people could donate art so they could have a way to learn more about the history of Prairie View, but also more about the culture and just a way where people can still interact with the sacred space if they don't want to participate in any sort of worship or activity happening inside of it. I have my visitor lounge here in the middle. This is a moment in and of itself because the windows come to a point right in the center where you can see the future from the present in which you're in. Because once again, everything is guided to this one moment, and you are also looking at the people that are standing at the platform. So it's just both sides being able to look at each other, but also being able to be just around everything. It makes you feel very present and very connected. For my interior sacred space, I have once again this window with the triangular motifs, but what I like about the sacred space is because it doesn't get a lot of sunlight, but it does have a lot of natural light, which is really good because the wall is made in a way where when the sun goes over, it doesn't have a lot of direct sunlight into the building because it would blind the visitors, but you still get that moment of looking at nature with the curtains on the side breaking up the space, so it's not just full window. For my other sacred space shots, I really wanted to highlight the community that happens in sacred spaces. It's not always about religion. Sometimes you just need the community. So I have these moments where you have these people greeting one of their friends, you have a family coming to church, you have side conversations happening with the speaker getting ready to speak to his crowd. There's just a lot going on because the community was a really big aspect that I wanted to tie in for this. For my private sacred spaces, I have it set to where it's very comfortable, it's very cozy, because typically people go to sacred spaces because they want a moment with themselves. They want to sit and they want to think about everything that is going on with their lives, and they want to really confront their troubles, and sometimes that's not always the most comfortable thing to do. So I had it in a very cozy and homey way. But then whenever you are ready to leave that section and go into the other section marked with the partitions, there is a way for you to do it and really interact with the space by taking off your shoes. That's why there's a shoe rack there, because the floor is carpeted and you can really be out there with nature. So it's like you're having a moment with nature, but you're still indoors and air conditioned, so you can just be. Thank you so much for listening. This once again is Madison Whiteside and my project Tri-Faith Summit for my sacred space.